the Auburn Finance Committee. It's February 26, 2026, at 5:30 p.m. Calling our meeting to order. Thank you for everybody for adjusting schedules this week. First on our agenda for tonight's meeting, I'm going to read off the open meeting advisory here. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, dial 1-408-650-3123 and enter access code 983-263-437, or the public can join via computer at meet.goto.com/Auburn. This one says select board room, little change. All supporting materials have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Is there anyone else recording this meeting? Seeing none. And all members are currently present, so. Sorry, I thought I hit it once, Michael. There we go. Thank you. So we do not have any members participating remotely, so we can skip that part. So first on our agenda this evening is our overview of the fiscal year 2027 budget. Town Manager Vecchio and CFO Town Accountant Karen Harnois have, I believe, have presentations for us.
Thank you. So to the public, and I think the people who have watched the Board of Selectmen meetings, but definitely for the Finance Committee, I think you see a difference in our budget presentation this year as compared to previous years. What I did is I asked department heads to make budget requests based on what they felt they needed for upward mobility in their departments. So I did not actually change the recommendation to reflect what I wanted. I didn't ask them to reduce their budget at all. I felt it important that not only the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, but the public know that the departments, when they go in for budget meetings with a town manager, they don't always get what they want. And in previous years, the town manager recommendation and the department recommendation always matched. And they were done that way on purpose, just, for solidarity and to just show that everyone was on the same page. I'm on the same page with my department heads. My department heads understand that I have limitations that I need to work with, and I did not change their request. So in some of these budgets, you're going to see a departmental request that is different from mine, and I can explain those differences. The first step was in the budget process was to focus on actual expenditures and transparency. And if you look at each of the budget sheets from each of the departments, you'll see actual expenditures in prior years versus in the past. It used to be budgeted amounts. Budgeted amounts do change based on transfers, so we wanted to ensure that they were actual expenditures. So you'll see that reflected in the budget sheets. The expenditures year to date is something new that I added. That's really important for me when I'm looking at a budget and trying to determine if additional funding is needed, if we're running short in this current year. When you look at that line item in the departmental budget that says fiscal year to date, the date of that number is around January 18th. So it's like a mid-year point. So when you're looking at it, you can say, okay, half year we've expended this much, and you can look and see if we're in line to meet the budget for this current year or if we're off. We also provided a funding worksheet. You'll see that in your packets today. It is a sheet that has like a yellow highlight across the top. Next year, we're going to include that in the departmental budgets. What that is when we were going through the budgets with the Board of Selectmen, they saw, for instance, in a recreation budget, it doesn't look like the recreation director is actually budgeted. She is, but she's paid from a different funding source. So we supplied the board with a funding worksheet that shows what the funding is for, how much it's for, and where it's being paid from. Next year, like I said, we're going to do that differently so it's all on the same page. And again, the actual departmental requests were included for transparency. So in preparing this budget, Karen and I worked very closely together for many weeks and months and days. And we had some priorities. We had Finance Committee priorities, we had Board of Selectmen priorities. We weren't able to reach all of those priorities, but we tried to make our best effort for our very first year. We tried to keep the tax levy increase below 2.5. We used free cash for capital versus tax levy to decrease the amount of tax levy needed. We prioritized DPW and Auburn Public Schools. That was a Board of Selectmen priority. Provide additional detail from each department to include discretionary and non-discretionary spending. You'll see that in your packets. And to provide actual departmental requests versus matching the department with the town manager recommendations, as I've already said. The budget recommendation for fiscal year 2027 is $86,091,169. The departmental requests equal $88,006,857. I cut $1,915,688 from my departmental budgets. So there's a huge difference between what my departments are looking for to move their departments to the next level and what I can actually fund. The budget recommendation raises taxes by 2.18%, which is $188,000 short of the allowable 2.5 under Proposition 2.5. The excess levy under this budget scenario is approximately $9.44 million. This budget considers some very large challenges that we had this year. Our health insurance costs increase 14% at $1.274 million. And just so you know, in our conversations with our health insurance providers and our consultant, we actually have one health insurance provider who's trying to increase us 42% for this next fiscal year. We're going out to bid, we're getting quotes, we're self-insured, but it's important that we watch that number. A lot of that is being driven by pharmaceuticals, nothing new, but it's something extremely important to watch. I'm grateful that my predecessors have put financial policies in place to ensure that we had a very healthy trust fund that we can use, which we actually did use as a funding source in this year's budget. $300,000 increase for retirement expenses. We've had some major retirements in the last few years. Those are reflected here. A $300,000 increase in the Bay Path assessment, which they'll be coming before you, I believe, in the beginning of April. I met with them this morning in Bay Path and realized that the assessment is actually from the state and it's a calculation. So as I was asking them why they increased my budget so much, they said it wasn't them. But anyways, we are working with the state to determine how that increase was determined. And also our solid waste contract for disposal and removal expires June 30th. We know it's going to increase. We are working with a couple different providers to see if we can keep that cost as low as possible, but also maintain the same level of service. We've had other providers in the past that we've had a lot of problems with, so it's very difficult to maintain the same level of service, but we're working diligently to try to find that. Talking about the budget reduction, please know I didn't cut any budget because I didn't think they needed what they asked for. I cut the budget to stay within the parameters outlined for me as town manager, and that's to keep our costs below the 2.5% for the tax levy increase for our residents. And it's also to ensure that that there's no, sorry, I lost my train of thought, that there's no, that there's careful oversight on every single ask. So if I could have, I would have funded these requests. I may not have funded them from July 1st. It may have been January 1st. We do have a lot of things going on in town. So I just want you to know that. The first cut was 4 patrol officers and 1 sergeant. Okay, that was a request from my police chief. He's looking for another precinct. Do I think Auburn needs it? I do. Our call volume is extensive. We have a new study out. It's something I'll be coming back to you to discuss. I just don't think right now is the best time. 2 DPW laborers, which was really difficult as well. You and I know our streets, our sidewalks and our parks. We need people to do this work. $300,000 for supervisors to ensure there's supervisors on all shifts at the fire department. The chief, I'm sure, will talk about that when he comes in. An assistant director of DDIS, which is very much needed. We're trying to be creative with that. And a full-time library associate in Page. This budget does include the following. All collective bargaining agreements for all unions is completely funded. A 2% COLA for all non-represented employees. It covers the increase in health insurance costs of $1.274 million. It covers the increase of retirement costs of $300,000 and the Bay Path assessment of $300,000. We anticipate a solid waste increase of 6%, that's included, and the proper funding of fleet maintenance, supplies and services that you have had to deal with as a finance committee for the past several years because it was never properly funded. It's $120,000 that's spread between multiple areas within the fleet maintenance budget because it is tracked by the department that actually has the service. Also, 2 part-time interns for the Department of Public Works. They have 1 in engineering and they'll have 1 in fleet maintenance. And one of the most important priorities for me and for the town, I felt, was to ensure that the $30,000 OpenGov module for DPW that would ensure communications between town hall departments and DDIS and the Department of Public Works was cohesive. That was added back into the budget. So there are things that I was able to meet the demand of, and I'm very proud of that. It doesn't make any of the things that I cut any less important. It is all based on priority and need at this point. I will turn it over to Karen Hernois to do her presentation now.
This if you want.
Good evening. So the second part of the presentation is more numbers oriented. And we'll start with slides like we've normally seen before in the past. So this is an overview of the FY27 projected budget. The appropriations are estimated at $91.887 million. We're going to be talking about some more of the details in the revenues and the expenses as we go through the slides. But we have the local receipts, $13.6 million. We have our cherry sheet receipts, $18.8 million. We have our tax levy that we are projecting $51.757 million. $1.4 million in debt exclusions, available funds of $6.1 million for total revenue sources equaling our appropriations at the $91.887 million. So we have a balanced budget at this point. The excess levy capacity is $9.449 million, and we're utilizing, out of the 2.5%, we're utilizing 2.18% in this budget. So the revenues versus the expenses, this is just what we kind of went through, but as you can see in the different categories, like in the local receipts, we actually, when we get onto the details, you'll see that we haven't changed them that much to be conservative in that category. The cherry sheet receipts are according to the governor's numbers, and those are only increasing 1.43%, which is only $266,000 in extra state aid. We'll look at our tax levy a little bit more in the details. We have our debt exclusion as available funds, and again, our total revenues and total expenses, $91.887 million. Okay, looking at our tax levy, we start out for 2027, our tax levy base, which was our tax levy limit from last year, just over $59 million. Our 2.5% increase, $1.475 million. Now we're estimating new growth at $700,000, which is consistent with the prior years and is on the conservative side. So our levy limit is actually $61.2 million, but we are recommending a levy of $51,757,000, which is 84.56% of the levy limit. This is a detail of our local receipts, which total 13.6 million, and you'll see that most of them are level funded at this point. There's a few little changes in there for the enterprise funds budgets and the indirect costs. And the other change that we did reflect is the investment income, because when we looked at our budget versus our actual for this year, we're noticing the decline back down in our investment income, so we want to be reasonable and conservative with that. The big difference that you'll notice in our available funds is in the use of the free cash, which the town manager had mentioned. We're recommending using $2.8 million of free cash instead of in the past we had built it into our tax levy. Most of the other items are generally close and consistent with the year before. You'll notice the ambulance revenue, the 2.3 million, that includes 600,000 in funding of CIP. Getting into a little bit of the details, these are all the budgets by department for a total appropriations that the town manager had mentioned of the 86,091,000. So a few other items that we have to add into our expenses, the allowance for abatements, cherry sheet charges, and offsets. And then we can see the CIP is built into the budget below there, where you can see the 2.8 million in free cash. And we'll go over some of the other funding sources that are in there to offset. There's a couple of warrant articles that I have built in at this time because we're using general fund revenues to offset those. That would be the school Medicaid article of the 170,000, 3,500 for foster care, and 25,000 for the assessor's warrant article for the reval and training and support. This is a little overview of the CIP budget for this year. It looks a little bit different than other years because of the use of the free cash. The total CIP budget is just over $5 million. We're suggesting to use 2.8 million out of free cash. And then we're covering the sewer with the sewer enterprise retained earnings, the golf, again, with their retained earnings. The 600,000 you'll see in there for the ambulance proceeds is for the ambulance. We're using a 50,000 from the capital improvement trust, 200,000 with stabilization, which is consistent with the year before, perpetual care to offset cemetery, and we're recommending borrowing of 985,000, which is consistent with the year before, which I believe was 977,000. So as a summary, we have a balanced budget. We have the 91.887 million in revenues and expenses. We're at 2.18% of 2.5, and the dollar amount that equates to is 188,934.83, which is under the fiscal Prop 2.5. So thank you for your attention to that, and that concludes that part of the presentation. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions relative to the two presentations? Trevor?
Yeah, to the town manager. In regards to the change, the dramatic increase in the health insurance, I just want a little clarification on when our plan year runs versus the fiscal year, when we're going out to bid. Is that increase part actual, part what we're estimating with increase, or is all of that increase, like all that 1.2, is that all going towards what we're contractually obligated to at this moment?
So it runs fiscal year.
Okay,
It's
so-
July 1st to June 30th. We have a healthcare consultant that we work with that works very closely with us this time of year. She's the one who goes out to bid. She does outreach to Blue Cross Blue Shield and all the other competitors. Unfortunately, there's not a lot right now to compete with. Once she gets the initial proposals, she works with them on what we want, what we need based on our plan design. And there's, like I said, one healthcare provider came back with 42%. There's just no way.
Yeah.
And there's a negotiation between them and her at that point. And then I'm tied in. We believe we'll get down to the 14%, which is the amount that's budgeted,
Okay.
which is what will pay. But that's, that's after a lot of analysis, a lot of negotiation, and it's very technical.
Yep.
And it's not including any type of major plan design. The health insurance companies right now, though, are cutting some pharmaceuticals
Yep.
that are very expensive. I'm sure you've seen it in the news. We're running into the same thing here. If I have all of my health insurance providers cut, we'll just say it, it's a GLP-1, they're our biggest expense right now, and it's everyone's biggest expense. And health insurance companies are no longer covering it. So those types of things will reduce our cost as well, and we won't have a choice. We do have CanRx, which gives our employees another option, but it is something that I keep my eye on all the time. Of course.
Just on that same, to go off the coattails of Trevor, when they go out on our behalf and they are negotiating, are they trying to shop equal benefit or better and not lose a portion of it with an increase? So in other words, if you're getting this fully covered in your plan, say at the moment, because we're self-insured, and then they go out to bid, they're saying we want like apples. So if we have it here now with this increase, we want to be able to maintain that as a benefit for the employee and just minimize the impact on how much it's going to go up.
Understood.
Services, I guess I want to say like services.
So when they go out to bid, they use actual expenses associated with Town of Auburn employees that are on the plan.
But are they only a year behind or 6 months behind? Because you're not.
They do the look-back period, so they'll use usually 18 months of the past.
18 months.
Yeah, they'll go back and they'll use actual expenses based on what Town of Auburn employees and retirees and family members use. And they will market that actual, so say there's 3 surgeries, that's how they actually get the quotes to see what the increased cost is. And it's based on, because we're self-insured, it's based on actually what we use. It may be a little higher in our projections for this year because some of that is fluid and some of our high-cost claimants have termed, so we don't necessarily have that. But yeah, it's a dance, but it is based on actual benefits of what we provide now. I'm not changing plan design. I haven't negotiated with the IIC or the unions yet on that, but it's
I was just curious if it was more.
Actual
the
claims.
HCs driving the increase or if it was more just the general plan design.
no, it's the health insurance. It's the health providers and the hospitals.
Can you explain to me the difference between saying we're self-insured, but we're still negotiating essentially with insurance companies, correct?
Well, I can't negotiate with insurance companies because I cannot see the claims data. That's protected information. I cannot see what any town employee or retiree has done for their health care. So it's important to have a consultant that can actually get that information for you. They don't get names or anything else, but I can't get that level of detail. If I were insured, like through Maya, which is an insurance company that provides health insurance to a lot of municipalities, they would cover the cost just like you would a car insurance. So you'd get your rate based on what Maya's rate is, and they'll look at their book of business, and you'll get your rate based on their book of business. The Town of Auburn is self-insured. Our rate is based on our actual usage. Typically, it's lower. I've never seen where it's higher. It's always more advantageous to look at your own claims data versus a book of business that could include something that doesn't make sense for the Town of Auburn. When I was in Worcester for 23 years, we did it the exact same way. We were self-insured. I do personally watch the GIC because the GIC offers health insurance to municipalities. And I look at them for, number one, to see what their costs are, to see the deviation in different plan designs, and to make sure that I'm in track with that's sort of like my measure, my scale on making sure that we're in the right place. The consultant that does the negotiation is based on provider agreements that they have with hospitals, not provider, health insurance agreements that they have with hospitals. I'm sure you've heard of like different issues with St. V's or UMass, and this one's not taking Blue Cross anymore. All that plays into this. So some, like Blue Cross may have agreements with UMass and St. V's, and that may be where most of our people go. I don't know. I'm sure I could find that, but that makes a difference in what our costs are if they have an agreement. And those agreements are, I'm sure, extremely large agreements on surgery costs and pre-insured surgery and after-insured surgery and doctor's office and things like that. They're set costs. There's other charges that, or other services that don't have those types of agreements where they'll come in a higher cost for the town of Auburn. So it's all a negotiation.
Fuzzy math, that's for sure.
We should sit down sometime. I'd love to go over it with you.
I don't want to get too far down this, because this is just a piece of the budget that we'll have, when it comes up, we'll be able to discuss it, but just a quick clarification. So you said, trying to think of my own health insurance, if a prescriber, a doctor prescribes a drug, a pharmaceutical, and my health insurance doesn't cover it, I have to make a choice whether to go with it or pay out of pocket. Are you saying that's not the case on the municipal level? If the provider isn't covering it, then we have to cover the full costs? Or
No, I'm sorry. I misspoke. There are some, so when you have your plan, you also have a pharmaceutical plan and you have a medical plan. The pharmaceutical plan has a formulary, and that formulary is what's based on, it tells you if you have this medicine, this is what's going to cost you. If they take out GLP-1s, which most of them are taking out GLP-1s right now, our insurance company doesn't pay for it, the town of Auburn doesn't pay for it, and you have to pay for it out of pocket. As an employee,
So this falls back to the employee? This
It
is not-
does.
okay.
it does, sorry. Yeah, sorry, it wasn't clear.
Do you know how long the relationship is with the health consultant that you use currently? Like how long you've been working with them, or the town has, I guess?
I don't know how long Auburn has been working with Gallagher, but I worked with them for over 12 years in the city of Worcester. They're one of the best consultants that I've ever worked with. I have worked with them on nights and weekends and during emergencies on the 4th of July when everyone was shut off in Worcester. We won't go there, but like there are things like that. You need to make sure you have someone that you can trust. They were under a different name. They were bought out years ago, but we have a very good relationship, and it's very important.
Trevor?
Not health insurance related. One of the things that we pointed to in some of the changes between last year and this year is the rising retirement expenses. Looking forward at kind of the age and demo of our town workers, is that something we're going to continue to see rate spikes like that year over year, or is it something that we're expecting to be kind of one jump and then a little plateau? Do we have any data on that at the moment? I know we're focused on this year, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but just thinking forward a little bit, is that a recurring issue we're going to continue to have?
Well, with the retirement system, there actually is a funding schedule on that. I'm not really sure what the Worcester Regional is to be fully funded, but there is a schedule, and the increase in this year is similar to what it was the year before. But they do send it out yearly.
Okay.
So I'm not sure whether we expect the increases to be somewhat similar going forward. I don't know if we could get a little bit more information from them,
But that number, that range is something we've been seeing over the years. It's just, we're just pointing to it at this point as we're just.
right, as one of
mentioning large rates.
the
Okay,
large expenses that we need to cover.
I took it as more of a unique item to this year that we hadn't seen before. So I just wanted to make sure.
Increases over the last several years similar
Okay.
to this.
Any other questions on that?
I have on the last line of your page, about the amount funded through bond proceeds for 1985. Is that like the cumulative of what's above it, or is this because this is the page, basically I'm trying to ask, is everything that's a capital improvement being borrowed through this bond, or is this just like an operating bond? What exactly is the?
Well, actually, in the detail, the total of the capital budget is $5,079,883. And all of the funding sources above that add up to that amount. So the borrowing is $985,000 of that $5 million.
But it's all going towards, the 985 is all borrowing this year for this year's capital improvement.
Correct, that's only part of FY '27.
Sure, I don't know, just to move on, I'm just really pleased with since you've just gone over this, I'm really pleased with the amount of information that has been put in our packets this year in the presentation. I know it's a tall order. I know you've been working with the chairman of the finance committee and the vice chair, and you've talked with the selectmen. I'm going to be very transparent. I find it really interesting that you spent 3 months on this, and in 2 meetings, it went from, the night before last, it was a $90 million budget. Now it's a $92 million budget. And I understand that the requests in which the selectmen have put on you, and I have watched the amount of movement that has happened in just a week. And I commend you on, I was wondering if you were going to come in half asleep tonight because you haven't rested in 2 weeks. So I think it's a tall order. It's a lot of work. I think it's a huge undertaking. If you look, I had projected that by this fiscal year, we would be around 90. Well, forget that because we've just gone to 92. And that's $6 million over last year and in more than in over the last 3 years put together. But I also hear you in that there's a lot that is transpiring. We've had a lot of changes. There's a lot of needs. And you just, to have given us a product like this, there were several questions that were answered. The one thing that I want to mention at this time, I have a couple of questions relative to some of the way that you've moved money in certain places, but I want to wait till certain people come up so that I can have them help clarify. Like, I have a question, but I think our assessor would be better off contributing to that answer rather than pulling them up now. But I think one of the things that I was looking for is this column that says expense and encumbrances is what I'm taking ENC to be. My concern was that I was actually not looking for the year-to-date expense or the encumbrance with it, but in a prior year, I was looking for that information because I rather than go through, so in July, we get a request to transfer $25,000 out of reserve, I'm really looking for part of the funding that ends up in the budget that's not there. So by looking at the true expense or the expense of the encumbrance, I don't really know that money was really taken from that line, or it was moved out to be used somewhere else, and it just looks like it was maxed out at its full expense.
If I can, through the chair, under, and I should have explained this in my presentation, under FY '26 budget adjustment,
Okay.
that is where you'll see all the transfers now. So that is the new.
Adjustment means
So
transfer.
when you see the adjustment, that is, so what you see for fiscal year budget for '26, the adjusted budget may be different, and that is based on town meeting, and it's also based on transfers that are done by this board, so that you actually see the amount that it really is.
So in other words, if the 26 budget was 1,100 and under a budget adjustment it was 1,100, it means it exhausted its value and no money was added or taken away.
That is correct.
Thank you for that.
Of course.
And I asked for a few things and everything's here, so I have nothing but thank you.
Thank you. And if I may, this isn't done by one person. Karen and I worked extremely closely on this. We had some challenging times too. We had sickness and we had death in the family, and we had department heads that were trying to show a different way of doing things. And I have to tell you, everyone stepped up. And there was no one that wasn't willing to work with me and with Karen to provide you and the Board of Selectmen what you need to make the decisions. It just was a different way of doing things from what they're used to.
And in your presentation, you did make mention of this, but I will say that I was somewhat surprised at the amount of departments that didn't take advantage of being able to say what they need. And I'm being full disclosure, because I did full disclosure, I did watch both selectmen's meetings, so I know what you've been up against. And for example, you know, we really wanted people to say that they needed something. And just to reiterate, the whole point was that if we heard, or if there became a common theme, which extends only at your desk and Karen's level, because you're the one interacting all the time, it gives that division or those individuals the opportunity to then come full and have both the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee hear it also and know that, yes, they are, you know, we might see a consistent trend and say, gee, there's something we can do. So I just thought that we'd see a little bit more of a difference, but in some areas they were completely equal, and I was like, okay. That's all I have. Very good. But I'm really pleased with the budget book there. A lot of questions don't have to be asked now because of the summary sheets and some of the, and as you said, it's a work in progress. It's your first year. I think the last thing I'll add, rather than wait for it to happen, is my interpretation of discretionary and your interpretation of discretionary, I thought, or non-discretionary restricted, are two different things. And for example, without going into a lot of detail, you have some areas that are either contractual or union, let's say, and they're non-negotiable because they're already predetermined contractuals, but you've got other areas where you've got similar like roles and you've put them in discretionary. Though something's not bound by a contract, it really sort of becomes non-discretionary because you can't start, I'm trying to be careful of the words I choose. Payroll, to me, is all non-discretionary because you can't treat some employees different than others when you've got them all coming to the plate. So you have some payroll in there that really, I think, belongs in non-discretionary. So I really asked the question for that reason, because you have to stay competitive and you have to be able to treat employees equal. So if someone's in a GEU or whatever, and it's a contractual agreement that they've gotten that, you can't. Well, that person who might be in a non-union position merits the same skill set and abilities and should be treated like. So I feel that they're sort of non-negotiable because you're going to pay them what you need to pay them to stay competitive. So because I was sort of going to withdraw and say, 90% of our budget has become non-discretionary because it's contractual agreements, because it's leases, because it's payroll. And just to sort of let the public know some of the challenges that as a municipality, our managers and our CFOs and our department heads have to deal with, because when they're trying to run their departments and they're trying to come to you, well, we need a lease to get all of this done. So we really don't have the discretionary base that I think some people, or disposable income as a town, to sort of pick and choose and say, gee, we really have some extra money here, let's go after this. And what you've done, and I know it's impacted in the budget because you came to almost 1.9 million below what your employees asked for, but yet you still went 6 million up because we know we've got reserves in other area. And this, you can honor the selectmen's and the town's request for the needs that they have. And we've even said maybe some of our peaks are too high, so let's bring down some of these reserves. But at some point, we've really got to make good use of that money, because those reserves took many years to get there. And when you suck them down, I noticed you went $1 million in one night. You were 1.7 for the first selectmen's meeting, and now you're up to 2.8. So it's there, spend it and make good use of it, but it's going to get drawn down. And to your point in the first selectmen's meeting, you did mention that we're trying to be a little bit more conservative because we know at some point we're going to rearrange our fiscal policy, but we're going to hit those ceilings again, and we will have made use of that money that we've spent. So we're going to have to rethink a path going forward.
Absolutely. And if I may, through the chair on that note, what he's talking about is after our first meeting, and it wasn't the result of the meeting, it was just the result of Karen and I talking about the CIP afterwards, is I didn't realize that we were doing a very large borrowing in the CIP. And we had talked about it, and one of the things that we want to do is spend down a little bit of free cash not have the interest rate of a large borrowing. So I did move, and that was a discussion that we had, because I wanted to borrow similar to what we've been borrowing to keep the interest rate low and not have a $2.8 million borrow for capital when we have free cash at, even after using the 2.8 million, our balance will be 8.8 million in free cash. And that's including the warrant articles that we know of now. So it is strategic. It is to try to save interest money, interest charges that we would get if we did borrow. But I agree with you, it is not a forever funding source, and it's not ever to be used for operations, which in this case, it's not.
Not, and I could see that because you were at 86, still 2 million below.
Yeah.
We went up. And it's important to point that out, that we're not using that excess 6 million for that reason.
Right.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll get into our budgets. So the first one is the town moderator's budget to review, number 114 in your books. Thank you for putting the numbers next to it, makes it easier. This is a relatively simple one, same it's been forever. $296 is the was the department request, and $296 was the town manager's budget to us. Any questions on this?
Just need to say, when I say motion to approve, do I have to do like,
Well, actually, it's a motion to recommend.
motion to recommend?
These will be recommends.
But do we have to do like the full dollar value, like motion to recommend department,
No, you can just say motion to recommend the moderator's.
motion to recommend moderator budget as is?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? No discussion? We have a motion and a second.
Well, I just want to know why it's really a big problem to go up $4 on this. I think every year I stare at this and I just burst out laughing, but it's,
Through the chair, I asked the same thing. I I thought maybe it was in the bylaw or something said it had to be 296.
like, there's something
It is
formulaic
not.
about this.
It is not anywhere. It's just 296. I just left it that way. Like that, FinCom can increase it $4 if you like.
We're making cuts everywhere else. We're $4 is not.
Okay, very good question.
It's just,
Wondered it for many years, but
I have, and I've had to just say something. It's just cracking me up.
True.
we do have a motion to recommend and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next one is 122, the select boards. This one,
Membership dues.
I'm getting used to reading these as well. So FY '26, it was 11,537. This year, it's $12,537 for the select boards. Have any questions on this one?
I'm just curious about the $1,000 increase to dues. Is that just to reflect the, higher cost of whatever the select board are members of?
It is actually an increase in the MMA due that we get every year. Of course.
Any other questions? We have motion to recommend.
Motion to recommend.
Motion to recommend and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town manager's budget. 129. Do you want to go over this budget?
Sure. Through the chair, I do have a 4% increase in my budget, and you will see an assistant town manager position budgeted in this budget. It is, right now, I have 2 assistant town managers. One is full-time, but is acting as the land use coordinator and the planning, our planning director. So he is not able to provide me any assistant town manager duties. And as you know, Chief Coleman has been working with me for the past year on projects that are associated with assistant town manager duties. And I actually could not have done as much as I have in the past year without him, because my assistant is not able to help. So as we move forward to this year coming, Chief Coleman will eventually wean off the budget. This most likely will be his last year. He's part-time. I told him I wouldn't say this in public, but I sort of said he didn't have much of a life, so he's probably watching right now, because I get emails from him at night because he works all day and he goes home and he'll send me a picture and you can see his TV screen with his monitor and he's like typing away. There's a lot of things that have been going on in town, the centennial. Our purchase orders became automated. Our payroll system and entering payroll has been automated. He has been working with Karen quite a bit on automating processes that just have taken a long time, and to eventually save money, improve efficiencies. He's been doing that for me. These are things that I've been wanting to get done in the past 3 years, but in this role and being new, I am not able to focus on those right now. So it's keeping us moving forward. And within the next year, as Paul starts taking on those duties with a new planner that comes on, economic development director, or not director, coordinator, and a land use coordinator, because he's doing all three right now, then we'll be able to use him as well. So you'll see that reflected, 31,000 as probably, I think, 15 hours a week, or I don't quote me on that. I don't know exactly. I do know he does a lot, though. That is the biggest change in my budget. Everything else is pretty consistent except the audit. The audit did increase $10,000 from last year to this year, and that's our annual audit. It's not any other special audit. It is through Scanlon. I had Karen do quotes on prices for that already, and that is the going rate. So I didn't want to miss that for another year. So that is basically the only changes, real changes in the budget.
Is the audit budget locked in for a couple of years, or is that just as we go 1 year at a time? Was this just an agreement for this fiscal year 27 audit?
This is actually starting a new agreement
For 3 years?
for 3 years, yes. And I actually did receive another quote on the audit, which is $60,000. So the prices are increasing significantly.
Any questions? Just one quick one, and it kind of goes across multiple budgets. So I realize in a smaller community, your personnel need to wear many hats, and a lot of times we'll see in the budget process, people's salaries are divided up amongst multiple locations, usually under the same umbrella, but sometimes it's a bit difficult to follow. And I see, like Chief Coleman's got a stipend. Is that beyond their, it's additional duties, but is it within their 40? Sometimes it's tough to follow that some of these stipends that go along and different hats that people are wearing. Can you just sort of?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because it is not something I'm super comfortable in breaking out. I would prefer to have this all under like the fire chief so that you could see the whole thing. I don't know any other way except to do it this way, but we do have multiple employees that are like split between departments, and you'll see that as well, which is, we're going to work on that to try to figure out the best way to show the actual number of the employee's salary, because it looks like there's 2 part-time people, but it is actually a full-time person with benefits. In this particular case, this is an additional stipend that he's paid weekly that is separate and distinct from his chief duties. And it's my obligation as town manager to make sure that he meets my expectations of what I need him to do to ensure that this keeps going. I can stop this at any time if I don't need him for the next whole full year. Then I will definitely not use him. The best thing about him is, and as you know, because you know him so well, is he knows so much about the town, and his institutional knowledge is priceless. And he's helped me in so many ways make some really good decisions. But this is separate and distinct from his fire chief salary in this case.
And it's not anything against Chief
No.
Coleman. It just happened that his was in your budget.
Yep.
You just read off his name.
Yep.
Because there are other ones, I think.
You're going to see other ones,
think,
yes.
Kristen Pappas's salary is in like 3 different places. Kenny Fairbanks' salary is in like 5 different places. It's sometimes tough to follow, and sometimes if you weren't familiar with this, you would think we were paying people a lot more than they are. But when you have to kind of go and put them all together, it's the right salary for their duties, but it just,
Yes.
sometimes it's tough to follow. when
And
it's spread
just so you know, Kristen's salary is not even funded. She was here last night, and there was a question, it's zeroed because she's actually funded through the recreation revolving account, but if you looked at the budget, it says zero. So in working with Karen, we will figure that out for next year. We'll definitely show the position and the salary, and at the bottom, we'll show the funding source, which is what I said in my presentation. That will be helpful in that situation. In a situation where someone's getting a stipend, we're going to have to figure out the best way to present that to the board, because if you are having trouble trying to follow it, can you imagine what it's like for a resident trying to figure out what we're actually doing? And I think that's really important for them to try to understand. So we'll be working on that.
If I could just provide a little bit more information about that. I know the town manager mentioned before, and I know you just received it tonight, but this schedule, the other funding sources in the FY 2027 budget that has the yellow on the header, this is actually what we provided this year, and you can see in some of the departments that we put down there that the split, like in human resources, there's a split between the budget and the health insurance trust funds. And so I tried to pull out as many as we could on here. And again, I know that you haven't had a chance to digest any of this, but this goes through the different budgets and departments, so hopefully this is helpful.
It's very helpful.
Going forward.
Any other questions?
Recommend.
Trevor, do we have a motion to?
I'll second, but I do have a discussion. I do have one question, and
Go
I
ahead, why don't
think
we go-
this makes my point a little bit better. Where you have budget adjust, and this in this budget, for example, I'm just picking on it because it's right in front of us. But obviously, we can see some transfers in and out. It sort of makes a little bit of sense. But where it's difficult is to tell, I'm really trying to understand. To me, it seems a little ambiguous because it's almost like you're including the actual cost, not, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. Salary town manager, fiscal year 26 appropriation, 216,404. Then it says budget adjust, 220. So obviously, we did something last year. We moved some money in because as we finished off the year, there was a reconciling issue with settling everything, right? So that becomes very clear to me. And then the 31, I understand how that gets there. But then when I look at the clerical, or not the clerical, when I look below and I see buyback and I see it at zero, is that where we've said, oh, we didn't use that buyback money, so what we did was we moved it somewhere else?
Through the chair, that's a great question.
That's where I'm confused about trying to
don't-
make sure transfers are isolated.
Yeah, there's no buyback for the town manager's office, right? And there hasn't been, we haven't moved it anywhere. Yeah.
So what you did was that line item ended up being adjusting to zero.
Yeah.
And then that money went into the general fund? Or did it get moved out? It just got zeroed out and moved
Just
somewhere
got zeroed out, yeah. We don't need money for that line item right now.
But you see what I'm trying to understand? I'm trying to tell in some line items if I'm looking for somewhere where we had a reduction because we probably had, so to simplify it, you had $60,000 in a clerical position. Nobody worked in the position for 4 months. The police department comes in and will say it's there. And they say, we're going to move this money to here because we need it for this line item. So now we see a reduction in the line, and it became not because we filled it with somebody that we paid, but because we took money out of that line item. And that's what I'm trying to understand. I think one of the things that's difficult for me as a board member is the money that's in the numbers that we're talking about here, taxpayer dollars.
Absolutely.
And so therefore, we know that at the end of the year, if we get to the end of the year and money is left over, we know that the budget is audited and it goes back into a general fund. I am trying to utilize that knowledge to see if, when we're budgeting the next year, it prompts the question, gee, did we even fill this position? Because a budget can go 6 months off at the end of the year and we don't touch it. And then it can go 6 more months because it's a really rare position and it's something really difficult to fill. but yet you've taken 12 months of income and filled that line and used it for something else. And I think that's an important thing, because I don't know that the taxpayer completely understands that though the money's in the budget, it's eventually going back to the use and need of the town. And I think it's not communicated very well in our finance committee meetings. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so we have the town manager's budget of $544,174. We had a motion to recommend.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
I,
Thank you. Next one we have is number 131, which is the finance committee's budget.
I just added in a small increase in the dues so that we didn't have to do a transfer from another account to fund that. So it went up to $300.
Did our supplies go somewhere else? Are they being held by, we don't really need supplies?
The supplies haven't been budgeted since, it looks like since fiscal maybe 2023, right?
We've been recycling all our binders and paper clips.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not overly worried about it, given the dollar value, but I've just noticed, like, in our 2020, like our 2026 year-to-date, like, we haven't spent anything on printing, or nothing's been allocated to us for any sort of expenses related to all the paper that we get in front of us on a regular basis. I mean, it's consistent numbers, $1,000. I'm not worried about it by any means. Should we be incurring something there, or is anything that we're, maybe
If I may-
hitting another department by, inadvertently that?
If I may, through the chair, typically when you see this, and you can see that there's been prior year expenses, this isn't a budget I necessarily worked on. I do believe that's probably something to do with the town meeting warrant and the financial documents associated with that. So the expenditure would happen later on in the year. This year-to-date is only through January 18th, 2026. Okay, so, and it's only for what's been expended and encumbered through that date. Based on what I see in prior years, it's been spent every single year. Yep.
I'll just say one thing, which is, I've gone to the Association of Town meetings, and that's actually, I don't know if that should be in here, if that's coming out of your budget. But I would heartily suggest we all go to it, because I've learned a lot doing that, like a crazy amount, the two years I've went.
Is that the dues that cover our membership? Is that what the dues are?
The dues may cover the cost of the seminar. I'm not sure on that one, but
Some of them are free. The
Yeah.
annual meeting, I think they charge $50 or $60 for. Some towns send like 8 people in, like just, they have their own table. There's a lot of discussion about a lot of different things. But, it's very interesting seeing how different towns operate.
And you usually come back with some good stuff for us from
I
the,
mean, it's a little bit overwhelming sometimes, but, and I go in a little skeptical, but because I think the state's doing lots of things that they could be doing differently, and it just sort of confirms a lot of my prejudices, but, I mean, everybody's doing their best, but, I think at some point we need to have complicated. This is sort of the classic example. We're giving people 2.5% cost of living increases, and at the same time, we're raising taxes 2.5%. So we're just sort of chasing our tail here. And I think we, as a state, as a country, I think we need to figure out how to avoid cost shifting and thinking it's a solution, because we're writing down these numbers, and we're just creating the problem that we're chasing, that's chasing us, many hands make light work. The more we charge each other, the less we can afford, the less we can accomplish. And I think that's the difference between like the 1950s and today, is simply because everything was cheaper and it was easier to do things. We charge more, but we're not actually, all we're doing is making everything more expensive that we touch. You know, and I would like to think that the state and the federal government, because those people run that they're going to make the economy work. But I think actually we live here and we actually have more power to fix things than we realize. Because if one town would change, the other 350 would change. But
Perfect. So on our budget, we have town manager's recommendation, $1,400. Do we have a motion? Any other questions? If not, we'll have a motion. Do we have a motion on this one?
And it's our budget, so I'll make a motion to keep our money.
You want to make the motion on this one?
Make the motion.
Okay, Patrick Williams makes the motion. Do we have a second? And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the reserve fund, salary funds. Someone want to give a presentation on these numbers?
Sure, so the reserve fund is being recommended less than the FY '26 numbers because of the negotiation of the contracts happened in FY '26. So we don't need the extra amounts in the salary reserve. So they're going back more similar to what they were in the prior years. But the town manager also wanted to put a little bit, about 150,000 into the reserve. And I think it's because of the health insurance of the unknown, just in case it comes in a little bit higher, that we'll have a little bit of a buffer in there to help us with the increases if they come up a little bit higher than expected.
Questions on this one? Patrick?
We're not there yet because it'll come in a future date, but I noticed that the fire department's their value yours is much lower than theirs. I think they were at like 900 for overtime and we're at like 600. If they need to come to us for any of that $300,000 difference, is there, just given that, and if there's any, I think the school has some union negotiations. Do we have enough money here to offset any current fiscal year union negotiations that are unsettled, and the fire department? Not borrowing somebody retiring?
So if I may, you said a lot.
Yeah.
We did budget for someone that is retiring. We anticipate retiring. You'll see that in one of the future budgets, which is a request that came from this board last year. I was here and listened to it, and the discussion that the board had on if we know someone is leaving, why don't we fund it? I'm not sure what the answer was, but we did this year, so that is resolved. In regards to the fire department budget, not jumping too far ahead, they asked for something special. $300,000 was going to be used for additional supervisor on each shift. When that was cut, it's not going to happen. So they're actually properly funded for overtime. And do I think they're going to come back? I don't think so. I hope not. There's a lot of things that's changed on their end in regards to contract negotiations and problems that we solved this past year. I did ask for additional money to be in here for a couple of different reasons. One is in order to save some insurance costs for it's actually not health insurance, it's liability insurance. We have deductibles. I have a small built-in budget here for deductibles. It reduces the overall cost of our insurance, just like we do at our homes, and it's a frugal way. It makes sense to do, especially in certain areas with certain vehicles. And when you get to the insurance budget, you'll see that it is level funded for the first time in a few years. I spent a lot of time in getting quotes and working with insurance companies and looking at our fleet and looking at different expenses that we have to try to keep that cost down. But I am comfortable with this amount. I do not believe the teachers or the school department is negotiating in '27. I think it's the following year. I think we got one more year, and we just settled. We're going into our second year, so I think we'll be okay with that. Thank you.
Questions on this one? So we have, for the reserve fund, we have the town manager's recommendation of $550,000. We have a motion to recommend.
Second.
And a second here. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, number 135, the Finance Department.
I'd like to give a little overview of the Finance Department. As you know, it's made up of 3 divisions: accounting, assessing, and the treasurer collector. And our goal is to provide excellent customer service while accounting for financial transactions of the town with accuracy and efficiency. So I'm going to start with the accounting department, and I'll have the other division heads join me as we go over the treasurer collector and the assessors. So in the accounting department, I just wanted to mention a couple of our objectives are to maintain accurate accounting records that are updated and reconciled on a timely basis, to file our internal and external reports as required by the due dates, to provide training for the new assistant town accountant on payroll and other departmental functions. We have a new assistant town accountant that transferred from the assessor's office, and she has a good amount of financial background. So we brought her into the position. She's very excited to be there, and we're excited to have her. So we want to continue to provide some training and professional development for her. One of our other objectives is to attend annual trainings to keep up to date on the latest requirements of GASB and the DOR. And one of the projects that we're working on right now, which the town manager had mentioned that Chief Coleman is helping us with as the assistant town manager, is to decentralize some of our processes. So we had a manual process with the purchase requisitions and purchase orders in the office. And we have recently started several departments on our financial software, and they're using the system to enter in requisitions. The approvals are sent through the system. We've been approving that and doing them electronically now. So we're a little bit excited about that, and we're working out some of the kinks, and we have some additional departments that we're going to bring on shortly. So in the accounting division, wanted to mention we have the 2% increases for the assistant town accountant. Actually, there's a change on that. We looked at the differences between the salaries of the assistants and the salaries of the clerical positions in the offices. And we found in some instances that there wasn't much of a difference in the salary between the assistants and the clerical. So we did make an adjustment in the accounting division to increase the assistant town accountant to $71,000, which is consistent with some of the other assistants, so we can maintain that balance of the salary in between the clerical and the assistant position. So in my salary for the CFO town accountant, there's a 2% increase, and there is a proposed change to my contract. I had the deferred compensation and travel stipends, and I'm transferring those to the salary line. So the net change in the budget is 0, but we're just making that transfer in there. I have a small increase in dues for $50, and a salary increase for the 1-week vacation buyback that's in there. And I had already mentioned the implementing of the requisitions in the purchase orders. So just see if you have any questions on the accounting division.
Questions on accounting? Patrick?
Just to clarify, the change on, and thank you, this is what I'm saying, we don't have 50 million questions because it's all right here.
Yeah.
But just looking at the best interest of yourself, is it, sometimes travel stipends are deferred comp or fixed amounts, and your salary is the salary. Are you shooting yourself in the foot by combining them? Because once they become one, when you get that increase the next year, you're increasing your stipend along with your salary. I'm just thinking, is that an appropriate step? Usually they're both fixed, they're both solid numbers, but it sort of makes the stipend a variable cost rather than a fixed cost, and I don't know that I'm using the right word. So you're getting an increase on your stipend when in actuality, you might have really only gotten an increase on your, in your comp. So I just wanted to, sort of like giving yourself a raise.
Well, actually, that's part of the reason why for the shift.
Gotcha.
Because if we put it into the salary, then it becomes pensionable.
Right.
And also you get a, the small increase on it. Right.
So, okay.
Just to be transparent.
Sure, then that's what I was just clarifying.
Andrew?
More, I guess, philosophical than budget related, but artificial intelligence is obviously a hot button word. Accounting and financing is expected to be one of the most highly impacted areas. I just want to see kind of what your thoughts are, and are we planning for that? I mean, in the next 4 years, there's going to be a lot of change. I mean, I'd say there's been a massive change in the last 6 months in that regard, where my personal experience is over the last year, I've gone from 0 usage to an hour or 2 a day in my job, which is not accounting. So I guess I'm asking, do you see that impacting over this budget and really the next couple of years? And how do you see that impacting the accounting and financing of the town?
Are you talking about like implementing additional checks and balances to make sure that, fraud and different things like that?
I'm thinking more efficiencies, what kind of efficiencies are going to come from that? And what kind of, what's it going to do for your department to, add to your department, I guess, really?
Dory, I think that, Governor Healy has sort of started to embrace this on the state level, and we're starting to see rollout of different AI controlled technology.
Yeah, I mean, I think-
on the state level, but I think the question is it a general philosophical question as to how you could see this impacting some of the state, town, municipal management of
Yeah.
things like budgets?
I think to the idea of it, like as you mentioned too, you're implementing a new, PO, electronic PO system, which will streamline that process for you as Copilot and other things continue to become more popularly used and other things can be streamlined. I think the question is essentially, is that going to get to a point where we don't have as much need for the same amount of people?
If I can, through the chair, yes. The answer is yes. I don't see it in this next fiscal year, but it is alive and well. It's something I use myself more. I actually am surprised because I was always like, I'm not going to use, I do. We have a lot of training resources right now that are coming through MMA. I'm not sure if they are coming through on the finance side, but they're definitely coming through on the management side. And a lot of AI discussions are coming up on how to improve efficiencies, different things that we can use. So as much as I am a bit nervous, to be honest, a bit nervous about it, I am open to it as long as it is, as long as it's the best thing for the town of Auburn and it's safe and secure. But if it can improve efficiencies, I'm all for it. So I do see it changing. I am hoping it changes in a way that saves us money in regards to process changes by using AI. But I do know even on day-to-day operations, if you're writing an email or if you're just checking something or a letter, that is improving as well. And that's something that we're doing right now. We are also very actively looking into AI in the HR realm, which is something that there are a lot of seminars on that Jillian will be going to soon, once we're done this process. But I can see this throughout the whole town, and I think there is going to be education involved in it to get us there, and it will involve this board, Board of Selectmen, all the employees, and residents as well, because I think it's gonna go the full gamut, so.
And I appreciate your healthy skepticism, because I have a lot of that as well as I use it. So that I would say is a good thing to have, because there's a lot of probably bad things that could happen from it as well. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay,
We take these as just one department, or do
we can,
make a motion to recommend the treasurer's,
they're each individual in terms of they're numbered, so maybe we'll just stick with them as each individual one, so.
So I'll make a motion to recommend CFO's budget.
I recommend the accounting budget, $275,431. We have a motion to recommend.
So, just a point of order.
Yes.
We were provided an updated
We
finance.
do have an updated one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's
I checked up in
279,
my book.
279, 111.
Oh, I thought that was the one I had in front of me. Thank you for correcting me. I got it over here. Yeah, sorry.
Can you just read off the number for me?
$279,111.
Okay, so we have a motion.
I'll second it since he corrected me.
Okay.
Okay.
So Mike,
I will move to recommend the
Okay, we have a motion
accounting budget.
and a second to recommend the budget as listed by Mike Marshall. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, the next one's the assessor's office. I know we have the Seth, though,
Seth, if you want to come up and.
is here.
I'll just-
Seth's come up. Thank you for departments to be here. We had asked throughout last year to have folks here to sort of advocate for their own budgets instead of just seeing you at times when requests for transfers. So, and I know it's late and I know it's cold and it's been long days, so I do appreciate you being here and being the first one was sort of just getting out of the gate and getting things going. And unfortunately, the few, subsequent weeks would go a little bit smoother, but thank you for your time. Seth, do you want to just go over your assessors?
So we have a budget of 244,152. So it's, yeah, okay. So it's a 2% increase for the chief assessor and the assistant assessor. Clerical position is currently vacant, but the intention is to fill the position at the minimum salary level. The position is paid a $2,000 stipend for data collection and that's per the union contract. And there's an increase of $100 in map updating for more frequent updates during the fiscal year, and that pertains to the OpenGov system.
So beyond just the bones of the budget, which sometimes is not very exciting, what, you mentioned mapping, and I think you were before us last year relative to a change from the mapping system that we're utilizing. Anything good and exciting? Tell us, just
Yeah,
You know,
I think
what
the
does the assessors do?
open platform, OpenGov platform, I think was initiated by the former building commissioner. And part of that was basically for his permitting software, for animal control. I think the clerk uses it for some things. And what we found, or what we've subsequently discovered, was that you had to bring all the mapping with it. So it was like one, I think at the time I don't know if he was fully aware of that, but, so we had to bring all the mapping. We used to use People GIS, and the OpenGov is superior. And the thing about the maps is if anybody's been online, they might charge a little bit more to put like the shape files of a house on a new parcel. If there's a new commercial building, we send them those maps and they, would put that digitally on the maps online. So that's kind of a overview of it. I don't know if there's further questions or.
any other questions on the budget as presented? Do you have an updated one? Do you want to just read it off for me?
So I will move to recommend the town manager recommendation of $244,152 for the assessors in the finance department.
Okay, second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're good. Thank you. Thanks, sir. Next one up is the treasurer collector's office. Spanos here? Bet you were just working late when I saw you coming in, but you were actually waiting for us.
My name is Catherine Spanos. I haven't met all of you. I've met Patrick and I know Kevin. I want to give you a little bit of history of who I am. I was actually raised in Auburn, was married, moved away, came back when we were married. I have 3 kids, one currently going through the school system. And I kind of landed in this role as a fluke. I worked for Fidelity Investments, and I was fortunate enough to stay home with the kids. Then a part-time clerk position opened up in the treasurer collector's office, and I said, oh, that will be so fun. That sounds pretty simple. I was absolutely flabbergasted by the volume of work, basically the responsibility that falls within that office. I was then, went from part-time to a full-time clerk. And then I was asked to consider becoming the assistant treasurer collector when Deb Terrian retired. And then Mary Ann retired, and I begged her, please don't go, please don't go. So now I am the treasurer collector. But like I said, I was born and raised in Auburn. I am a resident. I care about this town. And I take what I do seriously. I take a lot of pride in my work because that reflects on me. I know it reflects on the town, but it's also my name. If we look at the budget, there's no major changes. There's maybe a few expenditures that haven't been utilized for fiscal year '26, and that's really only because at this time we have a brand-new office. I have a new assistant treasurer collector who started last summer. I have a second assistant treasurer collector who started in November, and I have 3 brand-new clerks. We have a veteran clerk who retired after 20 years, and she was phenomenal, phenomenal. We also had a seasoned clerk who left to go work down to the fire department. So I have an office of brand-new employees, and I'm just trying to stay afloat. We are utilizing Mary Ann Murphy. She is coming in on a part-time basis, and she has guided me, she has tutored me, she helped get through year end. I don't know if it could have happened otherwise, other than me moving in and never seeing my children. But anyway, but if we just look at the budget for the treasurer collectors, like I said, nothing major has increased. The bill printing has increased a little bit. That's kind of still hard to gauge. Last year, we did kind of go over our budget, but it's just kind of a hard number to gauge. You can see the tax title really wasn't utilized. Hopefully, I'll have some time. Usually what we do is we reach out to our tax title attorney and see if they can follow up with anybody who's in tax titles, maybe just send some letters, just kind of seeing what the status is on some of the residents. Let's see, our travel and meeting and publications went up a tiny bit, only because now we have the second assistant, so we would need to get her enrolled in our Worcester County Treasurer Collectors Association and our Mass Treasurer Collectors Association as well. And in this summer, our annual conference takes place at UMass, where the 3 of us will be attending. Other than that, I don't see anything major. Any questions or concerns that you're?
Anything the office sees for the future, needs? I noticed a little bit of a difference in your request compared to the town managers, which is kind of what we wanted to see, right? But those requests, are those things that you'd hope for if money's become available? Again, what do you see for your office and needs in the future?
My needs, if at all possible, time. I just need time to kind of get everybody up on board. And just kind of getting the 2 assistants some additional training, taking them to the annual school, getting certified. It's a tough position. It's a fast-paced office. You can't learn anything overnight, even with the clerk's position. Even in my position, I'm still learning. But like I had mentioned, we are utilizing Mary Ann Murphy, who's coming in part-time to help. Like, that has been a tremendous, tremendous help.
Forgive me, Mary Ann, she retired?
Mary Ann Murphy retired after
Coming
11
back as
years.
like a post-retirement
Yes,
sort of-
yes, yeah. She retired right before year end, yes.
Which is a great utilization of retirees that just hit that mathematical actuary's number that they probably should go, but are able to come back for some hours, and the knowledge, I'm sure that.
Oh, absolutely.
I see the tax title, and I understand that line is a 7, you think reasonable, it's a tough call. But I notice that's where one of the differences. I just had one other point to mention. Dory, I know we're in the middle of budget season, but Catherine's got big shoulders, it appears, because she's got a lot going on. I commend you on the transition from private to public. I experienced it myself. But she is the custodian for our OPEB trust. And I know there's been some prior discussion. I'm sure that's on your list, but obviously not in the moment. Is that something we're still giving some consideration? So as we move forward, Catherine has some support in that area?
I may, through the chair, yes, it is a priority for us. It is not going anywhere. We have to try to get our arms around it. It's so big. I am comfortable in the allocations that we're making towards it based on our current budget, but it is not sustainable. So yes, I will be working with Kate, I'll be working with Karen. It is on my list of things to do, but it is definitely a priority.
Well, my reason for mentioning it and keeping sight of it is more, as they've mentioned AI, there's so many moving parts. We know our budget today is what it is, and in a few years, I think we're going to see a lot of other things that are coming forward. And I think if we implement something like that and we get it into place, she's got support around her so that she's not owning the whole, as custodian, it's a big responsibility. So we're just looking for more support in that area, because even though we're contributing to it, it also goes hand in hand with the large increase we see in our self-insured plan and insurance, because we don't want to lose sight of funding that and having a good return on it, because the sooner we get to our goals with that, whether it be in the next 8 or 10 or 15 years, the sooner we can turn it back and use it as a mechanism to fund our budget and to support the people that are in need of it. I know it's not a lower priority. I just wanted to mention it while I had you, knowing that, it is a lot. And we understand that it's a lot, but in meeting, like you said, we've met before and we've talked, and the board is meeting, you're also talking to the custodian. This position is the custodian of your OPEB. So I wanted to point that out.
Did anybody notice that Trevor perked up when he said OPEB? Because
Love OPEB.
I don't know who loves it
Trevor
more.
is our resident OPEB expert, so it was like you said OPEB, and he said, what?
So thank you, no. And I just noticed the tax title and I understand it, but there's only a $3,000 difference, but I think that's sustainable, sure. Motion to recommend, or to approve, recommend.
Let's read off the record.
Yeah, to make sure I'm on the right pages, 1,006,000.
Nope.
The total, so the one right above it, I think the 480.
Oh, thank you, $489,137.
So we have a motion to recommend the treasurer collector's budget.
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Kate, Tom, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's exactly what we were looking for, just to get to know our department heads a little bit better and, and to advocate for your office and
Thank you.
certainly. Her brother and I played hockey together, and the much, much, much younger sister of her brother, so. But thank you for.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Number 710, no, Kate's got. Maturing debt. Okay.
So in this budget of the maturing debt, at this time, everything has been borrowed. See, these are actual debt payments on debt that has been issued. And actually, if you notice that there's a decent decline in it from fiscal year 26 to 27, so that actually helped with the fiscal year 27 budget.
This is just principal, correct?
This is just principal.
So if we're borrowing for the fire station and we have to put money up front to get the borrowing secured, the premium and the costs and all of that to process the debt, which I think we were doing that in 27, are those costs not going to fall in this area? Won't the first interest payment be due before the end of the won't the first principal payment be due before the end of fiscal year 27?
I don't think so, because we're probably going to go out for short-term borrowing
Okay,
with
so we're gonna do
bands.
short-term borrowing?
Yes, yes,
This is just long-term and it's got.
yes.
Any questions on this one?
Motion to recommend.
Second. Motion to recommend the maturing debt amounting $2,204,910. Do we have a second on that? Patrick, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next one, interest, $752.
So in here, we actually did build in some interest on the short-term borrowing at $75,000, it's estimated, and other.
The interest at the top.
Yes,
Got it.
yep.
Okay.
And then the others are the debt that's already been issued.
Questions on this one?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend on the interest, $612,389. All in favor?
Aye.
Going to 151, Law Department.
Through the chair, for the law budget, I level funded it. I am working with the Board of Selectmen, who are the appointing authority for our legal counsel. I did go out for an RFP, and I'm analyzing the requests. At this time, I'm recommending a level fund budget based on expenditures year-to-date and historical expenditures with, if there is a change, to use what's in the reserve, some of what's in the reserve account.
I have a question on this one. Just how do I say this. I know that our budget increased a few years ago because we had some sort of like big ticket litigation items. I don't know if we have a particularly large docket of litigation going on right now, but I will say I was surprised to see it level funded. I assumed we would be scaling back since we are both not in active negotiations on any of our new union contracts, and I have not heard of any new and exciting cases in the Auburn community. So not to ask for any details one way or the other, but like, am I just unaware of some things that are going on, or are we level funding just
I
because
would
we're
hate to
expecting
say that, Mike. I
costs to
would
go up?
hate to say you are unaware.
Hey, lots of things happen in
Through
this
the
town.
chair, we didn't use counsel to negotiate. So there's no negotiation charges through the,
I'm sorry, the negotiator line, isn't that typically?
it's employment. So it's employment.
Yeah.
But I did not use counsel to negotiate this past year. And I just settled all contracts for 3 years. We use our employment negotiator, if you want to call it, for various issues that happen in town and complaints that we may get from employees. And for the other line item is a multitude of things regarding analysis of our bylaw or different zoning decisions or things like that. I talk to counsel several times a week, depending on what the situation is, and I work with my department heads who also speak with counsel. There are a couple of lawsuits that one was just actually removed from the courts. I'm thrilled to say we're moving towards settlement, but it's been a lot of work between me and the lawyer on our side to get to that point so it doesn't go to court. So there's a lot of things like that go on.
Any other questions on law budget? We have a
Motion to recommend?
Second.
motion and a second to recommend the law budget amount of $145,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Last one for tonight is number 152, Human Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know it says that Jillian Taylor will be present. She is present. She did do the budget, but as the assistant town manager, HR director, as I was in my previous role, it's really hard to relinquish those duties. And I did make some changes to this budget, so I would like to speak to it before she comes up. One of the things, since I've been in town, is, and I think the board has alluded to this in the past, is we have people that do different positions, more than one position in more than one case. Sometimes they get a stipend, sometimes they're paid between two different departments. In this case, we have an employee that worked in treasurer's office, worked in the accounting office, and is now the HR coordinator in our human resource department. One of the things that I've noticed since I've been here is that our human resource department has never been built up to what it needs to be. And human resources is extremely important for any municipality or any business. And I have provided the human resource coordinator additional training which actually, if you can see, the reason I'm talking about this is I gave her a jump in pay and I've changed her title. Her title is Supervisor of HR and People Services. And the reason I did that was because, and I don't like to do it for the person, so I'm doing it for the role. This role is a dynamic role that works directly with accounting and treasury and HR, and has been the conduit for payroll, which is done in accounting, and does far more than the position has ever done before. In the past, it was an HR coordinator position. Now it's much more dynamic, and the roles, she's actually the trainer for payroll. We've gone through some turnover in accounting, and this person does all the training for payroll. She's being trained in a lot more of human resource processes than ever before in the town of Auburn. And those are the things like FMLA and all the legal things that we need to abide by are extremely important. So it's an elevated position. HR, to me, should have been a division head to begin with, and it wasn't until now. So my recommendation to the Board of Selectmen and FinCom is to do what is right and make this a division in itself, and give it what it needs to have, but also increased responsibility. It's not just because my background's in human resources that I say that. It is an increased responsibility to ensure that we do things properly by law in our HR department. So we have someone now that's willing and capable and knowledgeable and is able to do that. So my recommendation to the board of the Finance Board is to consider my recommendation and approve making an HR division an actual division versus, which I'm not really sure what it was before. Because I think it's just a standalone, it wasn't really a division head.
Yeah, I think I'll just speak to it first, and I'm very pleased, and I know HR is your passion from your past, but in my experience in time on this committee, it was always a secondary thought. It was sort of literally it was a second hat that somebody else, wore. And it's an important position for all the reasons you just mentioned. And, whether we would have to fund more in that legal department because human resource decisions were not handled well. It's the payroll. But more importantly, I think it's, which I'm sure you didn't mean to it's for the employees of the town as well. It's to ensure they're getting the right benefits and they understand their benefits and what their obligation, what's out there for them, to ensure that we're hiring the right people, that we're actually out there seeking out the best candidates for these positions. So it's always been something, the HR function here in town, not for lack of, but it really didn't have the focus. Congratulations, on moving up. And, I'm glad to see we're putting a focus there because it is hugely important in all facets of municipal government.
Thank you. And I think it's important to say, because it's not on here, but it is, the position is partially paid from the health trust. I think 10% is paid from the health trust because we can use, our health trust is very healthy and we want to keep it that way. Health trust is healthy. So we did fund a portion of the supervisor of HR and the HR generalist, 10 and 50, I think it's 10% and 15%.
15%, it says this great do.
Yeah.
Oh,
15% for
look at
the
that. I
supervisor.
don't even have that.
10% for the
You have
generalist.
connections. So that is funded also. So going back to what we talked about with, you can't really tell from the budget, that will be changing. Again, I can't say that enough. But when it comes to HR, I appreciate your input because it is, it's not secondary to me. A lot of the issues and concerns that we have day in and day out are HR-related issues, whether we need to train or we're not properly training or we're not giving people the resources to succeed, but yet we expect them to succeed. I'm expecting a lot more from this department than I ever have, but it's not just that, it's the person that is working with our accounting office when that's never happened before, and the treasurer's office, and having that cohesive, being part of a finance team. So I'm thrilled to, there's a lot of things I wasn't able to fund. I'm thrilled to be able to bring this forward to you tonight.
Hi, congratulations on your opportunity, and I think it's great that you have a mentor. Some people come into roles in companies, and you've got an individual above you who is an awareness, so can you, that, you know, not everybody gets that go-to or that support. My main question really sort of stems around efficiency and appropriate communication. Sometimes you go to payroll, and payroll shouldn't really be answering that question. I'm thinking this will fix it. But something to point out is payroll might say, well, that's really not something I should handle. You got to go to HR. And then HR gets bogged down because HR is like, well, no, that's payroll. And payroll says, well, now we have an HR. Do we have sort of a defined, or will we be defining when something needs to be dealt with in an HR individual capacity and when people will go to payroll? Because sometimes because full disclosure, I've overseen both roles. So I know sometimes people come to me, I went to payroll and I did this, and they sent me back to HR, which we've talked about. One of the selectmen goals, the Board of Selectmen and others, good communication, one-stop shopping, make sure we're in the right place at the right time, and I have an answer. So it can get a little touchy when you have a payroll division, but it sounds in your description like these, you know, the HR person's going to control what needs to go to a payroll, and payroll will have what they need, and the flow of information back to the employee will work.
Through the chair, these are very good topics, and again, you touch on a lot of different areas. Karen and I and Jillian are working together to develop processes that will eventually come to fruition, obviously next fiscal year as we move forward. I am not entirely sure where payroll is going to land. We're going to look at all that. As you know, we did an audit with DLS, excuse me, I'm going to lose my voice, DLS, and they had a lot of insight into what other municipalities do, what works, what doesn't work. I'm really waiting and anxiously waiting their report because I think they're going to provide us some guidance in this area as it relates to HR and accounting and treasury. So you're going to see some definite changes because right now we do have that employee going to treasury or going to accounting and not knowing where to
Well, not
go,
only that,
not
but
having
there's
support.
confidential information on
Yes.
some payroll deductions. So the payroll person implementing payroll may need to know that there's a dollar value and a code that goes with it, but they don't necessarily need to see the 5 pages of documentation that went with that deduction. That's really more confidential and should be kept in a more secure environment. And I find that in small companies, when you're wearing multiple hats, some people end up with knowledge, insight, or other information that's really not fair to them as an employee because, and I think now that your role is that everything's being designed, that this is an appropriate time to have that conversation. So the checks and balances here are making sure that the value or the actual knowledge that the payroll person or individual needs to have, they have, and they don't get the backstory because it's really not something, they know that deductions got to occur and they've got to be instructed by HR and signed off. They don't necessarily need to know all the why.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Great. Good news.
Jill, you want to go over your budget? Tell us,
Tell us why you wanted 15,000 in advertising and she only gave you 12.
You get cut too.
I will be honest, I did the 15,000 because right now, or I should say as of January 8th, the total expenses were already at $9,305. And with the amount of advertising that we have done this year alone, I knew that next year we could probably match that, if not more, especially with how much the cost of everything has gone up. So that is why I gave it the 15, but I'm still okay with the 12 because we are still giving it an increase that it needs.
Why is it
I'm sorry, can I say this on advertising? I know some, I understand.
Sorry, okay.
No, I understand,
Sorry.
I understand employment, really, thank you. But do we have archaic rules related to posting of public positions like we do with some meeting
Yes.
notices that with, it still says it has to be in
Yes.
4 different newspapers that aren't even printed any longer?
But typically, union positions are posted internally, so it's usually internally first. We don't have to post it in the newspaper, thank God that's been removed. Most of this expense is MMA, which is not expensive at all, which is one of our best resources for public employees. But also Indeed, we get a lot of people from Indeed. We're able to manage that, and actually Jill and I do it together now. It'll eventually be going to her full-time, but we manage the Indeed postings because it is very expensive. So some days we actually take it off or pause it so we're not billed, give time, to look through what we have for resumes. It's a management type thing. The reason I reduced it is because I do not anticipate next year to have as many vacancies because we have so many this year. I anticipated turnover as a new manager, which is very common when you have a new administration coming off on with different requests and people have to do things differently. I did see that. I saw people leave. I do not anticipate that continued level. I figured around 9, 10, 11, 1,000 in that account would be enough. And if we needed an extra 1,000 or 2, we could take from reserve. But I'm hoping that it doesn't continue to be as high level as it's been.
And why is it that police and fire have to go through HR when DPW has its own examination? Like, I always get caught up with this because it's like, we pay a certain portion out of here and there. But I believe police and fire, when they get their medical exams, that's what this medical exam line is for. Why is it that you do police and fire, but you don't do DPW? Like,
So it's actually opposite, a little bit.
okay.
So I found that it's actually police, they do their own medical exams.
Police and fire do their own, it's in their budget.
Fire, I believe the last round of recruits that we had, I did pay out of my budget.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I don't have the whole departmental budgets. I didn't get familiar with them this year, but I did pay out of my budget for their exams and then DPW, their.
They have it in their own budget though, DPW, don't they?
I paid those as well this past
So
fiscal
you
year.
paid fire and DPW, it's
Yes.
police that's isolated.
Yes.
Yeah, I did pay a couple of police this year because I was given the bill, but.
Right, right.
We will continue to work with them on getting it through the right system. I think there
No, and
was
I
just
know
some
in some areas of the budget,
miscommunication.
we break things out, and in other areas, we combine them. I
Right.
still think after all these years, I still struggle with, well, especially when we get to DPW and we're outsourcing the vehicles, and this is over here, and this is, at times, it's hard to maintain when you're looking at the budget, to remember that, so she's got fire and DPW, and police is on its own, it's sort of going to stay that way.
I don't think so. Police, we have paid a few police. I think with the turnover and the change in the police chief, I don't think he even knew we had the money in the account. So I think that was why it was sort of left off. Typically, everyone should be going through HR. And that's again, back to the communication piece that you had mentioned. It's just getting everyone understanding all the processes.
Forgive my my ignorance on this, just because it's still kind of new and this is only my second budget season. So this is all pre-employment medical exams we're talking. Is there anything after? I mean, obviously stuff happens, so.
Yep, so the DPW, they also have their CDL licenses, so they have to go for CDL physical for that too, so I will get the bills for those as well.
And that would be in this budget?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Very good. Thank you.
Just to build on Andrew's question, so injuries and things of that nature, where are those, if they get injured and go to a town doctor to get cleared to come back to work or something of that nature?
Those are typically, if they're injured at work, it's typically a workers' comp or an IOD expense versus a HR expense. And if it's a personal injury, obviously it's their own expense.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this?
Motion to recommend the town manager's recommended budget of $174,120.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next year, you'll have to be much more in-depth. Give me the first year sort of pass.
You talked to me last year. It was a different story.
We don't have any transfers tonight. That was the last budget to cover. We don't have any transfers. April 9th meeting minutes will be tabled to the March 4th meeting. Minutes for tonight that are listed on our agenda for the January 21st meeting. I know we were emailed them. I don't have a copy of them in front of us, and honestly, do you have a copy of them?
Yeah, I do. Do you need them? Need the copy?
Sure, if we can. Are there any, is there any questions on these? If there are no questions, we will consider these as
Submitted?
accepted, yes.
Accepted, sure.
Questions on that? We're back again, back on our Wednesday schedules next week.
Just, it's supposed to change to rain, but just be aware that like, it just seems like whether it's the Board of Selectmen's meeting or our meeting, it's snow or whatever. But I think Tuesday's forecast is starting to turn into rain, but it goes into Wednesday. So I think we'll be okay as long as it doesn't turn to snow.
Nope.
I'll be calling in for that meeting.
Any other questions relative tonight?
If it was in an email, I apologize, but do we have who we're seeing next week already out? Okay.
Actually, we got a
I'll
calendar.
forward it to you, Trevor.
I'm sure I have it. You got me here. Like, I can only do so much.
Take it as a win. Very good. If there are no other questions tonight, do I have any motion to?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.